Let's now follow up on this story, and if you haven't been paying attention, let me get you caught up. US intel finds Russia's RT News trying to push Americans towards Trump. The United States, with an unsealed indictment from the Department of Justice, charged two RT employees, these are Russian citizens, on Wednesday with money laundering and attempting to hire an American firm to produce content to sway voters towards Trump, towards Russia, and against Ukraine. So this company's name is Tenet Media, and they were based out of Tennessee. And this was funded through shell companies, money laundering from agents at RT News, Russia Today. So the content creators hired by Tenet Media claim they're the victims, and they didn't know that the money that they were receiving was coming from RT News, from the Russians. I'll just give you the name of the talents: Lauren Southern, Tim Pool, Taylor Hanson, Matt Christensen, Dave Rubin, and Benny Johnson. I don't know why the website is still up. Everything else is being deleted by various platforms. So the Tenet Media YouTube channel had 315,000 subscribers and 2,000 videos. It has since been deleted by YouTube. The intermediary person that you should get to know, her name is Lauren Chen. She is a former contributor to RT News, so she's the one that had the contacts with the Russians. She was the one receiving the money, telling the MAGA influencers, hey, I've got these investors that want to start this media company, Tenet Media. Can I pay you to license your content with Tenet Media? So Lauren Chen 100% knew everything that was going on. She's complicit in this crime, even though she hasn't been indicted by the DOJ yet. This is coming soon, I believe. Nobody has seen or heard from Lauren Chen in the last 5 or 6 days. She could be in custody at the moment. I don't know. Her backstory is really weird. She's not even American. She's a Canadian conservative of Chinese ancestry. And for some reason, she works with American companies like Blaze TV and Turning Points USA to influence US politics when she's not even American. Wikipedia is currently debating whether or not they should delete her entire page. An editor has nominated this article for deletion. And this is the Russian standard playbook to hire or groom attractive women to convince unsuspecting dupes to do what the Russians want. You can call it honeypotting or whatever, but this is an attractive Asian woman who approached mostly conservative white guys and convinced them to take Russian money to promote Donald Trump and the Russian narrative, Russian disinformation and propaganda. So Lauren Chen's YouTube channel has been deleted by YouTube for violating their community guidelines. And the question now is, will the content creators who claim they're victims, one of them being Taylor Hanson, will their individual YouTube channels be deleted? And this guy was the first to fall. This was announced yesterday. Taylor Hanson, I got his attention. I've been tweeting at him, not so friendly things, but he now follows me on Twitter because I got their attention. And he says he was permanently banned on YouTube with no explanation. Are they going to stop with me? Or do they have an axe to grind with anyone that was affiliated with Tenet Media? So here's the thing. YouTube has their own community guidelines. And one of those guidelines is if you accept money for sponsorships, you have to tell YouTube and you have to tell your audience. You can't be taking money from anyone, whether it's Axe body spray or Pepsi Cola. You can't take money from people and not tell YouTube and tell your audience that you're a paid sponsor. So what these influencers are trying to argue is it's not a sponsorship. They were signing a licensing agreement. They were going to make whatever content they wanted to make. They weren't being influenced in any way, and they were simply licensing their videos to Tenet Media. Not a sponsorship, it's a licensing. but I don't think YouTube is buying it. And Taylor Hanson's channel was the first to be deleted. So the question now is, will the bigger YouTubers be deleted as well? One being Tim Pool. And this guy's an idiot, but he decided to try to defend himself, and he put out this interview with Ben Shapiro. Ben Shapiro asked him fluff questions to allow him to give his side of the story, but everything in this video is a bald-faced lie. And let's just go through the clip with Tim Pool together.
And we were preparing to engage in sponsorships, and they were getting hundreds of thousands of views per episode.
The first thing you should know is Tim Pool just admitted that his weekly podcast only gets hundreds of thousands of views. You can go on Apple Podcasts, you can go on Spotify, you can go on YouTube. He gets like 100 to 200,000 views per video. It's not that impressive. It's enough to live on. It's better than the average, but still nothing groundbreaking here.
And we decided to license it out because Lauren contacted us and was saying, we'd love to license something from you. And I said, well, we don't need to do that. We're an independent company. We have our own members and sponsorships. And then it took quite a while, but long story short, we agreed to a non-exclusive broadcast license, which meant that we own the show.
So Lauren Chen, the attractive Asian woman working for the Russians, approached Tim Pool and convinced him to take their money for a licensing agreement of Tim Pool's podcast.
I barely even talked to Lauren. And it's kind of crazy. I've known her for a long time. So when she said that she was launching a company, she had investors, I'm like, okay. I mean, I hear that 50 times a year.
So he's known Lauren Chen for a long time, but also barely talks to her. And Tim Pool is so in demand that 50 different companies a year approach him wanting to license his truly amazing content so that it can be rebroadcast on other channels or wherever. Okay, dude.
And in the podcast space, we just heard that I think Travis Kelce is getting a $100 million contract. So these numbers that's where they're at. I think people don't realize how big the podcasting space is and the revenue that you generate from sponsorships.
So Tim Pool is saying you don't understand the podcasting space and how big it is, because Travis Kelce just got a $100 million contract for his podcast. Travis Kelce, Super Bowl winning tight end Travis Kelce, who's sleeping with Taylor Swift. I think they're engaged now, but Tim Pool just compared himself to Travis Kelce. That might be the funniest thing I've heard in a long time, but okay, Tim Pool, you and Travis Kelce, basically the same thing, both making a lot of money in the podcast sphere. Not strange at all.
Membership. For all I knew, this was, Lauren Chen, she works at The Blaze. She wanted to start a company. She found investors. That was seemingly the gist of it. We only ever took money from an American corporation. The amount of money that we were offered for the show was around market value for offers we had already received.
So Tim Pool was paid a $100,000 sign-up bonus and then $100,000 a week to license 4 clips from his once-a-week podcast. And he's saying that's fair market value. For a podcast that gets, we'll be generous, 200,000 views across all the platforms, fair market value for his podcast is $100,000 a week. Who is dumb enough to believe this?
And so it was just like, cool, I know Lauren, sure, whatever. And then you got Benny and Dave and Matt Christensen and Taylor Hanson, who I know them all. And I'm like, yeah, this seems fine, whatever. And the crazy thing is, assuming all this stuff is true, I'm like, man, this sucks. We didn't need the deal. The deal didn't do anything for us. It was just...
Making $100,000 a week didn't do anything for Tim Pool.
Sure, I guess. And the revenue that we were paid through the licensing deal was inconsequential to my lifestyle, to the bottom line of the company. And we've actually never done anything with it. I would say
$100,000 a week is inconsequential to the baller lifestyle that Tim Pool leads. Where's the money? I don't know. I've never even touched it. that $100,000, the millions of dollars the Russians gave me, is just laying around here somewhere. I've never even looked at it.
Like, the overwhelming majority of the money is just not gone anywhere. And then, we have people tweeting at me like, give the money back or whatever it is. Like, dude, let me put it this way. We're talking to our legal team. I can say that I just announced I've been contacted by the FBI at.
So that's what everyone wants to know and what none of these people are talking about. What are you going to do with the money now that you know it came from the Kremlin? Are you going to give it back? Are you going to donate it to a Ukrainian charity? Their answer is no, no, and no. And here's the thing about ill-gotten gains here in the US legal system. If you received money or you benefited from a crime, you don't get to keep it. So this guy has accepted millions of dollars from the Russians over the last 8 or 9 months, and he's got to give it back. The FBI eventually is going to come for it. Even if he never faces any criminal charges or goes to jail or anything, you don't get to keep the money from a crime. Oh my God. So Tim Pool has 1.3 million subscribers on YouTube because he's been a YouTuber much longer than me. When we look at his oldest videos, they're from 12 years ago. So this guy has been grinding on YouTube and the podcasting platforms for more than a decade. Respect to this guy. That's actually very impressive. But what's not impressive is how many views Tim Pool actually gets. 2 hours ago, or let's do 1 day ago, 25,000 views. 5 days ago, 12,000 views. 10 days ago, 19,000 views. I get more views than this guy. That does not make me Travis Kelce. That does not mean fair market value for a sponsorship or licensing deal on my YouTube channel is $100,000 a week. This guy's an idiot. A short, bald idiot. So let's now prove that these guys weren't engaged in a licensing deal. They were taking a sponsorship. Lauren Chen was directing them what to say and do. And the Russians were telling Lauren Chen what to tell people like Tim Pool to say and do. This was unveiled in the indictment. And the example given was the Crocus City Hall attack in Russia, March of 2024. Islamic terrorists killed 145 people. This made Russia look bad because they're not in control of their own internal security. The fact that these men from one of the Central Asian republics got into the city, killed all these people, terrible first response, made Russia look very bad. So the Russians, the week of the attack, insisted that Ukraine was behind it. Ukraine was involved somehow, even though there was zero evidence, and even Russia's own investigation and conclusion to this attack, they're saying Ukraine had nothing to do with it. But the week of, it's very important for Russian propagandists to spread disinformation, to confuse everyone, just lie and say Ukraine did it. So RT News told Lauren Chen. Lauren Chen then emailed the influencers at Tenet Media, and 2 of them were willing to do it. They responded, "Sure, Lauren, I'll just say Ukraine did it even though there's zero evidence." Here's Tim Pool blaming Ukraine for an Islamic terrorist attack.
These videos get sent to me, of course. I mean, I'm plugged in the news 24/7.
So he just said these videos get sent to me. The Russians are the ones sending him the videos.
And the first thing I said was Ukraine. Only a moron would say otherwise. Ukraine.
Only a moron would say that Ukraine wasn't behind the Crocus City Hall attack.
For what purpose would anyone attack Russia? Now, to be fair, there's a decent probability that ISIS could make sense because you have Chechnyan Muslims and other anti-Russian forces that have long plagued Russia. But Ukraine makes the most sense. Now, it could be that the enemy of my enemy is my friend, and these Islamic extremists from Chechnya or neighboring regions may have gone to Ukraine for aid. And it's basically, you've got a privateer type scenario. Ukraine says, we're at war, you're at war, what do you want? And these guys say, you give us what we need and we can carry out these attacks. And
this is one of the dumbest men on social media. And he's just doing it for money. There's another clip, I'll link this down below, from one of the other influencers, Benny Johnson. He also just said Ukraine did it because that's what the Russians wanted him to say. So here are the Russians on Kremlin State TV offering political asylum to these MAGA influencers with Tenet Media. This is a real clip from Russian Media Monitor. I'll link it down below. But let me read for you what the Russians are saying about this DOJ indictment of these pro-Trump media influencers. Of course, everything that is happening all at once is a systematic plan. RT News is their one direction. Another one is the purge of these bloggers, such as Taylor losing his YouTube channel. The ones tied to RT News and the ones who aren't, I mean, for example, Scott Ritter. I don't know what fate awaits Judge Napolitano. He's a contributor on Fox News. I think it would be a chain reaction. They will try to imprison everyone. They are even getting to Jeffrey Sachs. They've already announced a tentative list of who should be subjected to repressions. I am not exaggerating. If President Joe Biden is a Nazi, and we live in a fascist state here in the United States, why 2.5 years into this war have none of these people been arrested? Alex Jones, Tucker Carlson, Scott Ritter, they're all still free and they're all still talking. 2.5 years into this war. So this narrative, meanwhile, inside of Russia, if you hold up a white piece of paper, you go to jail for 8 years. But I'm preaching to the choir here. Let's continue. Russia should offer asylum to all of them. As Vladimir Putin said, we don't extradite freedom fighters. We should review the terms of our political asylum and correctly use it in this instance. In other words, this field will be totally purged. I'm anticipating they'll try to drag great friend of Russia, Tucker Carlson. Of course they will. There is no doubt that they will. To be honest, internally, I will always root for Trump. Of course, we have to decide whom to support. This is Soloviev talking. In these elections, the November election here in the United States, we can't just leave it to chance. I purposely didn't touch this topic. This is not an option, especially since Vladimir Putin gave us clear directives as to whom we will now support and why. So they're now playing a clip of Putin speaking at this forum in which he was asked, who do you prefer for president, Trump or Kamala Harris? Putin responds, I already said that our previous favorite, so to speak, was the acting president, Mr. Biden. He was taken out of the race, but he recommended to all his supporters to support Miss Harris. So we will do that as well. We will support Kamala Harris. Since this was commanded, then we must, right? So yes, Putin said this, but the interviewer is laughing when Putin says this. The audience is laughing when Putin says that he supports Harris over Trump. That was the clip. Soloviev comes back. Soloviev says, or Kulikov says, this is trolling of the highest level, and Americans will believe that all of it is for real. And they're all laughing at how dumb people in America are who are willing to repeat the obvious lie that Putin prefers Kamala Harris over Donald Trump. So who would be dumb enough to repeat this obvious misinformation coming from Russia? Elon Musk. Speaking at the Eastern Economic Forum in Vladivostok, Putin said his favorite candidate for U.S. president is now Kamala Harris. Elon Musk. Interesting. This is the tip of the iceberg. These first 7 or so influencers to go down, there's more being paid by the Russians. An FBI affidavit that was unsealed this week says that the FBI is maintaining an active list of 2,800 influencers taking money from the Russians. 2,800 influencers across 81 countries, 600 of whom are based here in the United States. So yeah, there's going to be some more indictments. There's going to be some more revelations. Russia has been flooding our social media sphere with paid propaganda to promote Donald Trump and to promote Russia and to weaken support for Ukraine.